Hello, friends. Welcome back to Stylist Soul Tribe Conversations. I am joined today by Micah Vetter. Micah is the owner and creative director of a branding studio called Vetter Designs Company. She specializes in helping entrepreneurs define their business's unique position in the market and then build visual systems that communicate their story. Over the years, she has received awards from the World Brand Design, TED.com, and AIGIA. I don't know if that's properly how I say that. Yeah.
Yeah, you're good. You're
Love it. Love it.
good.
For her graphic design and brand identity projects, she has also taught design classes at Illinois State University and continually educates her local small business community through recurring brand retreats. Hi, Micah. Thanks for coming on.
Hey. Oh, this is so fun. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, we were chatting a little bit before I hit record, and Mike was like, "Is there anything specific we want to talk about?" I'm like, "No, I just found Micah on Instagram. She's local to me. We live in the same town. I saw her work. She's done a lot of things in the Bloomington Normal area, and I had a project on my mind, which has now been released. So this is going to come out a month from now. So you guys have definitely heard about it. I wanted to create an Oracle deck inside of Stylist Soul Tribe just to bring to my people, and I have DIY'd on Canva for so long, and I think a lot of my audience feels the same way. And I was really craving a more creative run with it. Here's my thoughts. Somebody who's better than me do this. And Micah blew me away. The deck is so good. I still need to get her one in person so she can feel it. I actually have one right here in front of me. Amazing. I love it. I'm using it every morning. Soul Tribe girls are already getting it and using it in their morning routine and tagging me. We're working on another little project for my upcoming retreat. And whenever I meet really cool people that are doing cool things, if there is even remotely a slice of value that can bring to my audience or vice versa, why not bring those worlds together? So I asked her if she wanted to come on and just chit chat with me on the podcast. So that's why we're
Yeah.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so fun. I love what you do too. I remember stumbling upon your stuff and I just love small business owners.
Mhm.
They're just the best people in the world. They make me so happy. I feel most like myself when I'm around them. And
Mhm.
I love seeing other people that invest in small business owners. So like the work that you do and helping stylists be the best that they can be and take their dreams and make them reality. I mean, that's like pretty much the same thing that
Totally.
I'm in the business of doing too. So yeah, this is gonna be really fun.
Yeah, so do a brief little intro. Obviously, what I know of you very briefly, I'm sure there's a whole lot more to who you are. So let's start with a little bit of your story and then we'll kind of go into all the other things.
Sure. Yeah. I studied graphic design at Illinois State University, and I always was just into art. I loved art. I was the art kid, but I was never like the weird art kid. I don't know if
Okay.
that makes sense. Like
The trendy
everyone,
art kid. Yeah.
yeah, like everyone. I remember in school, like we had a professional artist. I don't really even know what this is like in high school
Yeah.
came in and he was like, in order to be an artist, like you need to be dedicated to just basically like you're gonna kind of always be a little sad. And I was like,
Interesting.
I don't like that.
Uh-huh.
I really like practical art. I liked making
Hmm.
beautiful things and having them have a function. I never really liked going to art museums. And that was a really weird pull I had because everyone was like, oh, Micah's the artistic girl. She's gonna
So you
want,
didn't fully fit that mold. Yeah, that
no,
never
I
felt
didn't. And
right when people described you that way. Yeah,
right, I
interesting.
didn't really like painting just to paint. I was like, I don't know.
Mm.
And not knocking that, I think it's wonderful, but I just had a really hard time with not having the practical side of that.
Mm-hmm.
So when I went to school and I found graphic design, that was the first time I was like, oh, there's this whole world of its application of art. And so we're taking
Yes.
art and we're making it design because it's art with a purpose. We're trying to have a
Mm-hmm.
goal and an outcome, and we're just using visual effects to get you to do something.
Yeah.
So I found that at school, studied graphic design. In the program, I found branding specifically, and my world just like blew up.
Mm.
I just started finding other entrepreneur, like business owner women that were running studios. It's really small, only 0.1% of brand studios are run by women, which
Wow.
is really crazy.
Yeah.
And so I found like the small handful of them on social media, just became
Mhm.
obsessed with them. When I graduated, I was like, I want to work at a studio. That's kind of the graphic designer dream is you want to move to Chicago or New
Yeah.
York. You work in an ad agency or something. But my husband was like, Micah, you don't want to work for an ad agency. I think you
Yeah.
want to own it. And I
Mm.
was like, oh, that's way harder. So
Yeah.
that is kind of like spurred me chasing this and opening my own business. I worked for a commercial real estate company doing their branding for a year. That was my only corporate job.
Okay.
And then, yeah, I just dove in and started this 3 years ago. And it's
Mm,
been so rewarding. I can't believe how well it's done in the short amount of time I've been open. I've been really blessed to just have people that want to work with me, and I love
yeah.
working with them. So, yeah, that's kind of how it all started. And it's just kind of snowballed from there.
Yeah. And I think there's something to that, like passion driven, mission driven push, that like it factor. Like I know you say it's only been 3 years and it's wild, but like my business kind of took off in the same way. And there's something about when you're so in alignment with what you're supposed to be doing and it comes so natural to you and you just push forward and run with it. Not for everybody, but for a small handful of people, and you can spot it really easily. It's just like people are just attracted to them, just drawn to them like a magnet. And I think you so have that. And it seems like it's just fun and natural and easy to you. And so it's such an easy buy for people because it's what you're meant to be doing.
Totally. And that really goes back to like the heart of
Mm-hmm.
branding is just having this crystal clear understanding of this is my purpose. And
Mm-hmm.
everyone thinks branding is logos and colors and whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But all a brand is I know who I am and I know what I'm doing and I know where I'm going and who I'm serving. And when you know that, like people are just attracted to you because you're getting the right people and you're doing the things you need to do to attract them. And so it fits you naturally because you're like, yeah, it just makes sense. Like this is so, it just comes from this really organic place.
Yep.
So yeah,
Well,
I
and I
love
feel like when people aren't like totally in alignment or they like take a class or just like copycat, copy and paste something else, you can like smell it. Like it's not natural. And not that you're like mad at it or anything. It's just not such an easy, yes, I'm in on this. And again, I feel that I detect that with you so hard and so strong. So with the brand identity specifically, whether it's when you first learned this messaging, or I know now you're hosting your second retreat, I'm eyeballing the tickets. I may be there. I will be there eventually. I know that for sure. The thought process that you share with others about brand identity and how to find it, like how would you put that into words? What are the common misconceptions and what is your way of thinking about that?
Yeah. So this is the baseline metaphor, I guess, that I give to people.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone acts like a business is this separate, like cold
Mm-hmm.
thing. It's just like this money maker thing.
Mm-hmm.
And anytime I get in a meeting or I'm running these retreats, the first thing I say is, let's drop that and we're going to look at your business like it's a person. And that is kind of what you were talking about earlier of like, I can smell
Mm-hmm.
it when it's not genuine.
Mm-hmm.
People at the core of everyone just wants to connect with other people. And
Yeah.
so when you're just kind of repeating and regurgitating what someone else is
Mm-hmm.
doing, and it's just kind of a modge podge. Honestly, it's kind of like when you read a caption, you're like, I know it, like Chat GPT wrote that
Yep.
person. It just feels robotic.
Yep.
But if it's like, no, like there were some spelling errors, sure, but it was kind of funny and witty. And I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I can connect to this person because I know a real person wrote that.
Mm-hmm.
That is what we want for a brand. The core of understanding like what your brand is we need to drop that. I kind of talk about it like Sims, that this is a big
Yeah.
thing I do in my kickoff
Uh-huh.
meetings. I'm like, let's picture this Sim character and it's
Love
floating
it.
and it's just kind of like transparent and weird. And we're
Mm-hmm.
gonna build it. So I want to know like, is it funny? Is it sarcastic? Is it like a contemplative thinker? Does it
Mm-hmm.
wear a fedora? Let's put that together and make it feel real because that's what people buy from. People buy from other people. So that's the core before you do anything is we need to understand who the business is and
Mm-hmm.
everything, what the person does follows who like their core beliefs
Mm-hmm.
are. So yeah.
I feel like my audience and the people that I interact with have gone through a lot of like stages of this. I'm curious to hear because you say I love how you say it's a person, but it's not. You're not saying it's you. And I think
No.
that this has been like for many years debated back and forth. I've seen educators in my industry that is very much like you are not your brand. Separate yourself from your brand. Yet the people we see with the really good brands, it really seems like that's them, like to their core. So how do you have like intertwine that? Are you a twin of your brand? Are you guys like just co-creating? Like how do you put the line in the sand of where the difference is between you as a person and your brand?
That's a really good question. I get that a lot. And I think it actually Depends on the industry you're in, I would say,
Okay.
for one, and your goals. So there are some people get confused by this because the influencer culture is so prevalent right now.
Personal brand has become such
Personal
a
brand, right? And
broad
that gets
thing. Yeah.
convoluted with the brand of a business.
Mm.
So I would say like Kim Kardashian, she doesn't have the same brand as Skims, right? Like they
Hmm.
those have different feelings. Yet it makes sense that Kim like
Hmm.
has Skims and like represents them. Like it's not too far of a stretch, but
Hmm.
she doesn't have to act like Skims all the time. Like that would be a little
Mm.
odd.
Okay.
And so I think there is this essence of honestly, like when we think about brands and like getting understanding like the core of values of a company,
Hmm.
there is something to be said of that's important for everyone to do as a baseline for themselves. Like I
Yeah.
think it's important for every person to evaluate yourself, understand your
Hmm.
values. So that way you're not coming across like this chaotic, crazy person who's
Yeah.
changing the way they're talking and acting
Mm.
and addressing people all the time. No one
Hmm.
likes that. And
Yeah.
those people aren't trustworthy.
Yeah.
Now, so I think that is separate from sales or business or anything. I think
Mm.
that's just like a person thing. Like everyone needs to do that. And then I think we need to treat our business separately, and we need to do that for the business. And oftentimes, when you have a business, you decide, okay, I'm a hairstylist, I'm going to open this salon. You're probably not going to be opening a salon and have goals for the salon that are so far away from your core values. If you love animals and you're maybe a little organic, you're really
Hmm.
into some beachy vibes and
Yeah.
just earthy, it would be really odd if you were like, I just really want to open this business that is like cutthroat Nike vibes
Yeah.
and is gonna like take over New York City. That doesn't really match. You just probably aren't gonna want to do that. So I think there's something of once you understand yourself better, you're going to build a business that has goals that are aligned with what you want. And so then
Mm-hmm.
your brands are gonna just have more of a bridge.
Hmm. That
That's
makes
my
perfect
option.
sense. And do you have any like tangible takeaway advice or pieces? Because I feel like a lot of people get stuck in that, like understanding themselves and then bringing that. Like, what are some questions you would prompt somebody? Obviously, we're going to share as we continue on. There's ways that you can work with someone hand in hand. But if someone's just listening to this podcast, straight takeaway, like, what are some of those questions that you would really say, like, sit down and then expand upon moving with this knowledge?
For yourself, or are you asking for a brand?
Maybe starting with yourself because it sounds like that's important and then moving
Mhm.
right into the brand.
Yeah.
Like, can they do that themselves? Is it really helpful to bounce that off of somebody else?
Totally. Well, I do think it is really helpful to do it with someone else, but you can also reflect on it yourself. Taking just some time, even if it's with a friend or a
Mhm.
professional designer or brand designer someday, having someone to bounce those ideas off of, because you say these words out loud and you're like, maybe you think them all the time, but you say
Yeah.
them and you're like, that actually didn't feel that authentic when I said it. Kind of
Mm-hmm.
weird. So that's just a tangent of I do think it's really helpful to talk about those. But my actual like the first one of the first things I start off with in my meetings, and some people might find this to be a little backwards, but I start off with goals. So before we talk about, sometimes people want to start with like the core values and you work up to then your goals. But I'm a really big believer that your goals reflect your desire and your
Mm-hmm.
desire reflects
Yeah.
like your core values.
Yeah.
And so when you're able, and goals are kind of easier to say. It's a little
Yeah.
bit easier to just be like, I want to be a millionaire, or
Yeah.
I want to have a really big family.
Mm.
Where those things are, that's a little easier to say than to really get into the nitty-gritty of your value system. So that would be where I would say to start is I would just make a list of, hey, these are the things that when I am old, I want to look back and be like, man, I did that. Like that is a life
Mm.
fully lived is
Mm-hmm.
these things and not to be ashamed of it. Sometimes people are like, this is silly, or I know this is kind of out there. Out there is amazing. I want you
Different
to
than
be
what
a
everyone
millionaire.
else is doing. That will make
Yeah.
it have a stronger foot to stand on.
When my husband was like, you should be one of that point one
Yeah.
agency owner, I was like, bro, I don't know about
Like
that.
that's a big one. Yeah.
And then you do it because you say it out loud. So that's where I would start is I start with your goals and then you say, what do these goals say about me? And piece those apart of, okay, I'm saying that I want to have a big family or I want to have a really strong friend group. That's showing me that I value connection and
Mm-hmm.
I value relationships a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And then that goes back to like you just kind of keep taking it steps
Yeah.
backwards. That will then lend itself into business of I want to create a business that is really focused around like having conversations. I want my salon to be a place people stay and they
Mm-hmm.
talk and they get coffee and everyone's just chit-chatting in the lobby. And that's going to inform the way I design my space. It's going to be super loungy. I'm going to have a lot of
Mm.
couches, like way more than most salons.
Yeah.
But you'll figure out what these desires are, and it just informs all these other decisions later in your life.
And what makes you unique, and then how you can build stories around that to properly market it. I love that.
Yeah, totally.
You also had written in our talking points is taking control of your business narrative. What do you mean when you say that?
What I mean by that is everyone is so concerned about what people think about them. I mean, I
Mm.
know I'm concerned about like everyone's thinking about it all the
Human
time.
nature.
Don't
Yeah.
want to admit it.
Mm-hmm.
And branding is a way that you can control that instead of just
Mm.
crossing your fingers and being, I hope people like me. Why don't we actively do some steps to make sure they do? Not all people, but we make
Yeah.
sure the people we want to be on
Mm.
our side are on our side.
Mm.
Because it's science. Like people are not as complicated as we think. It's really
Yeah.
not that wild. Like we can do
Mm-hmm.
some things. We can say ABC is going to lead to this group like having
Yeah.
a connection with my brand. So that's what I mean by the narrative is
Yeah.
let's control the way people are talking about you. That's also one of the questions I have
Mm.
in my kickoff call is
Okay.
one of the questions is, what do you hope your competitors say about you?
Mm.
So if you just overheard the salon down the street and they were talking about you,
Mm.
what do you want them to be saying? Do
Yeah.
you want them to be a little jealous? Do you want them to feel like they're on your team and whatever? But
Mm.
people have, it's pretty funny. Some people
But I
like,
love your analytical brain of like you can craft things, like you can shape everything around so that that's the way that it works. And again, as you're talking more and more, I see going back to you saying you never really felt that like artistic, because I really do think that my brain is much less analytical. So it's so fascinating hearing you say that. I'm just so like intuitive. I don't know how to explain it, but you saying like, what do you want them to be saying? Okay, well, let's give them something to talk. Like that's what we're gonna be intentional and we're gonna craft
yeah.
that. Love
Yeah.
that thought process.
What you just said is when you said let's give them something to talk about, that's my opening line on our my kickoff Slack
I love it.
deck is let's give them something to talk about.
I
Uh,
love that. So
it's really
how many salons? I know you've worked with what's her name, Sydney Evermore, right? Her name's
yes.
Sydney, right? I've had coffee with her once. She's here in town. I know you work with Yoga Lab, but how many like salons, hairstylists, businesses have you worked with before? Just out of curiosity.
Including I've worked with three like hair salons
Okay.
that I can think of right now.
Or
So
even beauty industry aesthetics, things
I've
like
done
that.
a lot of beauty stuff.
Okay.
I've done some work with Botox and filler people,
Hmm.
permanent makeup, like tattooing,
Cool.
eyebrows,
Mhm.
lips, things like that. Several hair, like just hair salon. The
Okay.
guest house was, I think they were my first intro into the beauty
Is that a
industry.
salon in Bloomington? I don't know them.
They're in Eureka.
Oh,
Everyone should check them out. They're beautiful. They
okay.
created
I
the
need to
most
connect with
beautiful
her.
space.
For a long time, I lived in Lincoln, so I'm a little bit more south. I still work
Okay.
out of Lincoln, but Guest House is the coffee shop there. So I just, yeah,
Oh, funny.
that's where my brain went. But I'm definitely gonna have to look into them. So, is there
Yeah.
anything you would say about the beauty industry specifically that stands out to you, being someone that works with multiple industries, multiple brands? Is there anything specific to the beauty industry that you notice?
Yes.
Okay, tell
And
me
this
everything.
is going to maybe make some people mad.
Ruffle some feathers. Let's do it.
So, this is my like when I get a beauty industry inquiry, I actually have this moment of like apprehension a little bit.
Okay.
And
And
that's not me saying I don't want to work with you, lovely people out there. I do.
yes.
But the reason I have apprehension is because a lot of the times people in the beauty industry, which maybe sounds counterintuitive, they like to look the same. And
Mm-hmm.
it's actually very hard to convince people in the beauty industry to take a leap of faith into a new
Wow.
direction.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. So like color palettes are pretty much
Mm-hmm.
always the same, like
Mm-hmm.
neutral, like no one in the beauty industry wants to have any color in
Oh,
there because
uh-huh.
it feels polarizing, which I
Uh-huh.
totally understand that. And yeah, that is true. Like that is true that there is some essence of like we need to remain a little neutral so that we can have
Yeah.
types of beauty represented. But I think I just would say a lot of beauty brands play it safe when it comes
Okay.
to the brand. And they follow the same trends. So
Mm-hmm.
they'll use the same type of fonts, they use the same
Mm-hmm.
like four colors.
Mm.
Their photography styles are often very similar as
And do
well.
you think that's like an education thing? Because there's a coach in my industry that I've worked very closely with, and she'll always say she studies a lot of other industries that we are a way more connected industry than anyone else. Like the way that Instagram rose and like the beauty industry just like got so interwoven, and hello, that's literally what I do is connect the beauty industry. Do you think that has something to do with it? Is like they're following the same educators, they're taking the same classes, or like when you look at, I don't know, a realtor or a car repair shop or like a restaurant. Why do you think that we're so different in that way? Is it online? Do you think that's what it is or what?
I do think that is a really good point. Every beauty industry, oh, I've worked with, well, there's so many more people are coming to my mind now.
Okay.
I've worked with people who've done like, do like facials and
Huh?
like skincare and things
Estheticians.
like that.
Yep.
I would say almost all of them that I've worked with, like in our kickoff meeting, they all say they value education a lot and they
Mm-hmm.
all take a lot of online courses. And
Mm-hmm.
I love that. It makes me so
Yeah.
happy. I'm always like, just want to give them a hug and be like, I'm
Yes.
so proud of you. So many other industries just don't do that. They're just dive
Mm-hmm.
in and they're like, I don't know. But man, the beauty industry people, like, y'all are on it. You
We
are
are.
upping your game. So I would like to say that's great. And sure, maybe that does lead to the fact that a lot of people are just learning from the same people and they have the same
Mm-hmm.
aesthetic. And so they feel like they need to do it that
Mm-hmm. It
way. And
gets
maybe there is
regurgitated.
this, yeah, maybe you need to have this, hold it looser of these people have really great education
Mm-hmm.
and I don't need to be them. And I
Mm-hmm.
can be myself too. And so
Mm-hmm.
there's just this liberation of how can I take what I've learned here and bring a new twist on it? Because there also is a reality of oversaturation. And if we're all looking
Totally.
exactly the same,
You don't stand out.
we don't stand out.
Yeah.
And so why is someone going to want to come to you instead? And that doesn't mean you need to be having bright purple.
Yeah.
What is the unique twist we can put on your brand to give you a different perspective?
Well, okay, so let's play devil's advocate and give you
Yeah.
my perspective because I do feel like I probably am blind to some of the things that you see. So, when I think of what you're saying in neutrals, just me personally, this is my own business. I'm behind the chair very little now. I'm not focused, I haven't been focusing on growing that business for a long time, but I did for many years. And my like dream clientele is lived in, low maintenance balayage. And I think something, now that I'm looking at it from a larger perspective, whether it was Instagram over all these years or something made us think neutral. And there's the running joke about the hairstylist with the wide brim hat is like the final boss of hairstylist or whatever. Like there definitely has turned into a vibe and a thing. But like when I think of like a low maintenance blonde balayage kind of vibe, I think neutral because that's almost the same color of blonde hair, like naturally grown out sandy beige look. If you knew that and you're not blind like I am, you have not been in the trenches for the years and years and years. Literally, my brain is wired to think a certain way. If you were to go into the beauty industry scene, like you are, let's say you're the professional and
Mhm.
that is your target market and that's what you're trying to grow. And if you want to ask me some more questions for values or things, what take would you go in with fresh eyes that would look so different from what the industry has been doing? Just to like
Well,
expand our even like possibilities of what there is.
sure. Well, I would say there's a lot of things that can make you different than it's not
Okay.
just color. There's a lot of, I'm like getting so excited right now. I need to take a beat. Okay.
Let's go there. Let's build this fake
Let's
brand.
build this brand.
Uh-huh.
So you said your target audience
Mhm.
is the lived-in blondes.
I mean,
What,
kind of myself, truthfully. And a lot of people say you're not your brand, you're not your target market, but I'm like,
sure.
my entire career, if my clients say do whatever the hell you want, I'm like, don't tell me that because you're all gonna walk away with the exact same hair that I have because it's easy to do. It grows out beautifully. It's flattering on everybody. So like that's the audience.
Yeah. Okay. There's other parts about that person that aren't, it's not just their
Mm-hmm.
hair and what they want
Okay.
from their hair.
Yep.
So I would say I want to know more about that person. One, I want to know, are they a girl? I want to know how much money they make, how much money
Mm.
they're probably spending how much you're wanting them to spend at your appointments.
Okay.
I want to know about their value system. So I would want to know, like, do they have a family? Are they a
Mm.
career woman or both? Like, is this like a CEO boss that's coming in and she's
Mm-hmm.
like, I need to get out of here quick. She has her laptop and she's working on
Mm-hmm.
emails while you're doing her
Mm-hmm.
hair. Or is she like fun? Like and
Mm-hmm.
you can not to say
Okay,
you
let's
can't
just
be a
play it
boss.
out. So obviously, and
Yeah.
I know hairstylists struggle with this too because they're always like, "Oh, I love this girl who's a nurse, but I love her who's a teacher, but I love her." So like that's the struggle that we have. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna say let's just speak more to the masses because I have very few clients that are CEOs. So let's say she is a nurse with a very flexible schedule and or in a higher position at work where she can take time off whenever, because that's in our
Okay.
industry what we're looking for, because it's hard when they work a typical 9 to 5 and we don't want to work those outside hours. So either high up corporate, not CEO, but like head of human resources or something like that, and or high paying nurse job. Yes, she has a family. Let's say she earns, I don't know, 160 a
Okay.
year.
What is it that she wants? Now, besides hair, what does she want? Like, is she tired? Like, what are the core things about her? Doesn't have anything to do necessarily even
Mm-hmm.
about what you're giving.
Mm-hmm.
But like, what is the thing that she's like, I just need this? Like, is she just tired and wants fun? Like,
I
my
think
life is so
self-care.
mundane.
I think she's rested because she prioritizes self-care because we
Okay.
don't want to take on the weight of her tiredness. So she's rested, she prioritizes self-care. She loves coming in and getting her hair done by us, but like she's not a hot mess that emotionally dumps everything on us. Because that's what I think of when you say tired, because we all have some of those.
So what is it that what are the core things she's looking for in life?
She prioritizes her time with family. She prioritizes feeling good. She prioritizes looking good at work and maintaining her professionalism and being respected by the world. Yeah.
So let me tell you what I would do with that information.
Okay.
I would take that and do a bunch of research. I'm
Mm-hmm.
going to research, find these people
Mm-hmm.
online, find
Mm-hmm.
real versions of them and
Okay.
the things that they like. I'm also going to look at other products that type of person is buying.
Okay.
And I'm going to look at the visual aesthetics of all of those things, but also the practical uses of like what is that person in this demographic buying and why are
Mm-hmm.
they wanting those things? Like what are the
Mm-hmm.
problems that they're trying to
Yeah.
solve? So like you said, like their appearance is really important to them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And they want to appear professional and put together and all that. So that's going to be like, so we probably shouldn't be doing this like fun, crazy brand that's got
Mm-hmm.
like really squiggly letters and
Yeah.
whatever. That's going to inform otherwise. So when we're talking about color, I can't just give you like a brand on the spot.
Yeah.
This takes
Okay.
weeks to do,
Yeah.
but
Fair.
let me tell you the different ways that a brand can look different from
Yeah.
competitors that are more than just colors. So
Mm-hmm.
one thing is fonts. Fonts,
Mm-hmm.
people glaze over. I think this is something I see the most common of
Mm-hmm.
people copying and pasting what other people are doing.
Mm-hmm.
Fonts are personalities, just
Yeah.
like in these little letters. No one realizes it. I'm obsessed with fonts. When I'm outside, when I go to a city, I'm
You
taking pictures of
notice.
signs
Mm.
constantly.
Yeah.
It's just like little people up there on the
Yeah.
like the E is doing something weird, and it's like, oh, he's a fun little guy.
Well,
Or
and even like right behind you, the make it something and then the logo, those are two different humans if we are
oh
thinking of
yeah,
them as humans. Yes,
totally. Or
I
like
see what you're
type. Look how
saying.
crazy this
Yes.
is. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So fonts tell stories and fonts say a lot.
Mhm.
So I would say that's usually the biggest part that I start on. I actually do color last when I'm doing mood
Okay.
building. Uh,
Okay.
so I would be like, what do I want it to be? Sans serifs are fonts like this one that don't have
Okay.
little ticks on
Yeah.
the edges. So like Stylist Soul Tribe, yours has those.
Okay.
And that usually it feels more high end. They're a little bit more traditional.
Interesting.
They just feel a bit more elegant when you have the serifs. If
Mm.
you don't have it, they feel more modern.
Interesting.
And so that's usually where I start. I like break down which category is it going to be in.
Hmm.
And then within those, there's a lot of things that go into that, like the weight. So is it a really thin letter or is it more of a thick letter? So it could be a serif that's thicker and that feels a little bit more welcoming and
Mm.
more down to earth. Or like
Hmm.
a tall, thin serif, like your serif,
Hmm.
that feels a lot more high end.
Interesting.
And then same thing with the sans serifs, also like how wide a letter is. When it's really
Okay.
wide, it feels a little bit edgier. It's kind of going somewhere. It's got something to
Uh-huh.
say. It's taking up room. When it's
Uh-huh.
thinner, it just feels a little bit more like petite,
Mm.
uptight, a little bit more put together.
So
So
you're
there's
saying you
always,
go and you really, really study that, and then you spend
yes,
time
yes.
coming up
Yeah.
with what feels like it will meet that person.
Totally.
The
And then
part.
graphics too. So, and colors. So all these things play together. Like, is this going to be a really heavily illustrated brand that's got like
Mm,
hand drawn things? Because this
mm,
brand really values human connection. And so I don't
mm,
want this to feel really geometric and looks
yeah.
like it's built by like an AI bro robot.
Yeah.
Like I
Uh-huh.
want it to
Yeah.
feel like a woman drew this in her journal. Like
Yes. Love
what are
that.
the different aspects of that? And so those graphic elements are really huge.
Mm-hmm.
It's not even what those graphic elements are of. Like, yes, it could be of a gem, but is this gem geometric? Is it abstract? Is it
Yeah.
loopy?
Yeah.
There's so many visual pieces that go into
Yeah.
it. So
Yeah.
that's what I would do is I would take all of that information you just got told me and I
Mhm.
would put that together in a mood board. So yeah, I would say neutrals do make sense for your girl.
Okay.
But I would also counter that just neutral, like just neutrals in black and white. It
Yeah.
doesn't need to be a bright color, but there should be some sort of warmth to that
Mm-hmm.
person because she values connection.
Mm-hmm.
And like she has a family. So it
Yeah.
shouldn't feel too like uptight and stuffy. There needs to be a warmth to it.
And I think there's something really powerful of just seeing it all the way through. And I think that's probably where this, outside perspective of the beauty industry has come from, is if you spend enough time working with someone that knows what they're doing to build it out in its entirety. And let's say it's navy blue, like it can be a color that we never see, but if it's
Mhm.
done well and right and fully, the full package accompanies that element. And I think people are scared to introduce that when they're just slowly piecemealing a brand together by each piece of content, right? Is that
Yeah,
fair to say? Like you have to
totally.
understand it in its entirety before you like bring this. And I think people play it so safe because they don't have that full understanding of their brand.
Yes. And a big part of what I do is there's variations of what you can get when you're getting branding done.
Hmm.
Like the base level, you can just get, okay, I want my colors, my fonts, and my logos. And you give
Yeah.
that to me on a little sheet, and that's what I get. My majority of what my packages are is a brand guideline, which is like a 45 to 60 page PDF.
Obsessed.
And that tells you how to do all those things. So instead of being like, here is your navy and neutral color palette, and you're like, awesome, Micah, I'm terrified. I don't know how
Yeah.
to use those colors. I break down, here's how you use these colors.
Mhm.
This color is only for backgrounds. This color is for header fonts. And then like I just tell you how to do
Brilliant.
literally everything so that way implementing it is so much easier. I think a lot of people are go a little bit on the more affordable side where you just get like the sheet of
Hmm.
the deliverables but not
Yeah.
how to implement them. And then it's a lot scarier, like you said, to jump into new waters and to try something new
Totally.
because you can't just
Yeah.
like kind of copy what they're doing and make a little Canva template that's similar
Yeah.
because you have a
Yes.
totally different set of rules you're playing with.
Totally. Totally. I love that so much. So before we hit record, you were saying you have very limited space available this year. And I said this is going to come out in a month. And you're like, okay, I'm definitely booking into 2025 then. If you don't mind sharing, if you'd rather not, I can cut this part. But price wise, just because if someone's listening, I want them to know if that's even remotely where they're at. I mean, I have people
Sure.
who spend quite a bit on their business. So don't
Yeah.
be afraid
Yeah.
to share that if you feel good
Yeah.
with that.
So my packages start at $4,200
Okay.
for the smallest package. So
Okay.
that's you get a logo set with that.
Okay.
I'm very much like I just want to set people up to have all the things you need. You can get just a logo, you can get just a color palette from
Yeah.
designers, but if you don't have it all together and
Mhm.
as a identity, then it's just not going to work. Like you're
Yeah.
going to have the same problem you've been having where you're just like Mod Podging a bunch.
Yeah.
So yeah, it can get up
Okay.
to, I have clients that spend like $15,000 on
Amazing.
branding, and that can go with implementation too. So people who are up in like the $15,000 range, they're getting the biggest brand guidelines.
Yeah.
You get a marketing strategy with that too. So we break down what is your brand, like we talked about before as a person, and how does that translate from branding is the overall like who you are, well, like who is this person? Marketing is how are you getting that across like action wise to people.
Yeah.
I also can make a marketing plan where I'm like, this is how the brand is going to market itself. You're going to
Amazing.
use these platforms. These are your content pillars. This is how your brand acts within these content pillars. You don't entertain by dancing to a
Yeah.
TikTok trend song.
Yeah.
You entertain by showing really peaceful behind the scene videos, whatever the thing is. So
Yeah.
we can do websites like you can do an Oracle deck, whatever
Yes.
it is. Every brand is different. There's all these
Amazing.
different add-ons we can add that make it kind of come to life easier. I haven't told you this yet,
Yeah.
but I'm going to tell everyone on the hopefully by the time this podcast launches, or maybe a little after. I'm actually rebranding my business, and I just signed a lease on a space in downtown Bloomington, and I'm going to be
Incredible.
expanding my team so that I'm also going to be offering social media management for people after I do their
Ooh,
branding. Because a lot of the
amazing.
times I hand over this brand and everyone is just terrified. They don't want
Yeah.
to touch it. They don't
Yeah.
want to post because they don't want to mess it up. or they hand it off to like a freelance social media person who
Mhm.
just posts and they're not like brand informed.
Yeah.
And so I want to attempt to do your marketing from a brand first perspective.
Love.
So I know your brand better than you probably know your brand.
Mm.
I will hire photographers, I'll write your captions, I'll do all of your design templates and everything like that. And we're going to just go from there. So that will be coming in January 2025.
Incredible.
I basically want to help you give birth to this brand and then
Yeah.
also help you raise it. Because a lot of the times it's
Incredible.
scary to have this little baby and you're like, oh my gosh, it's so tiny and I want it to get big and strong.
Yeah.
So that's going to be a new offer I'm really excited about.
Last time we
Yeah.
talked, you did mention the physical building, and I'm so pumped for you for that. I cannot wait to see how that continues to unfold. And you did say these do not have to be local people. Very few of my audience is local, but Micah did say she works with people out of state, across, I
Yeah,
mean,
for sure.
international. Whoever is listening, she
Mhm.
is open to that. So, how do people get in touch with you if they want to start to explore that with you?
Yeah, you can go to a lot of people will communicate with me on Instagram. It's
Okay,
betterdesign.co. Or you can also reach out to me on my website and just fill out my inquiry form.
cool.
I get back to you within 24 hours. Usually, what the first thing we do is I want to hop on a small call. Your business is unique. And so I just don't do templated, this is what you can get, because I want it to be like what's best for you. I
Mm,
love small business owners and I don't want to waste your time
yeah.
by giving you stuff you don't need. So the first thing we do is I just say, what do you want? Like, what do you want out of this business?
What are your
And then,
goals? Like you said, yeah.
yeah, what are your goals?
Yeah.
I just want to get people where they want to go. It's so exciting.
Yeah, I
And
love that. And as someone who has now worked with you, that is exactly how it felt. And that was the direction we went. So, yeah, thank you so
yeah.
much for coming on. I'm sorry to put you on the spot and ask you to build a brand like that, but I just love to hear. I wasn't expecting you to go that route. I'm not surprised now that I hear it out loud. And it is so refreshing. I talk to so many people that are so interwoven in my industry that we really do become blind to how the public perceives us. And the way that you feel about it is definitely how the everyday consumer, in a sense, is feeling.
I want to say, I wasn't saying that as a knock to all of you stylists out there. I hope it feels like I gave you permission that you can be who
Mhm.
you want to be.
Mm,
And who you are and that desire you have is really good and you should follow it.
mm.
So, yeah, I'm excited to see hopefully where this takes everyone. It's going to
Yeah.
be fun.
Absolutely. And I think we need those hard truths sometimes. I think we need to like have a mirror held up every so often, but I think a lot of people just don't know what to do. And so now there are tools and there is knowledge to be, shared of how they can bring that to life. Thank you everybody for listening. I will have all of Micah's information in the show notes, in the description, and all of that jazz. And I will see you guys all next week. And thank you again, Micah, for being here. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks.